Hello, and welcome back to my Vestaria Saga Clemency mode low turn count playthrough. This question we answer an age-old question, which is, in a low turn count playthrough, can a unit who is bad at doing everything, but has to do everything, become capable of doing everything in 2 chapters played at the minimum turn count? And that unit is Holland, and the answer is yes, but it's painful. So, and anyone who has played Vestaria Saga 1 before will know that Chapter 10 is going to be an interesting map to LTC, principally because you only have 2 units in it, Holland and Irvin. And Irvin, there's nothing you can do to make stronger since he joins in Chapter 10, and Holland is really bad and carried exclusively by her personal bow, which she gets during Chapter 10. And without that, she's just awful. She has base 2 strength, I think base 6 agility. And her growths aren't even that impressive. Her strength growth is a measly 15%, and I don't even remember what her other growths are, but none of them are good, even the ones you think would be good, like speed. So not only do we have to feed her a lot of kills, we also have to make sure that the levels she gets from those kills are good. And so that she can get a lot of levels and therefore give us a lot of chances to roll the stats that we want. We gave her the Diligence Tome, which gives her plus 50% EXP gain. And normally you want to give this to someone who's a long-term investment, who isn't too strong now, but will spiral out of control with a bunch of levels. Something like that. Unfortunately for us, Holland is the way that we play Chapter 10, which you'll soon see, makes her completely worthless after Chapter 10. Well, not completely worthless, but just not very good at all. So, back to this map, which we've been on for a bit. It's not too interesting. It's a defend map, so of course it's not very interesting. That being said, it's better than a lot of other defend maps in this playthrough because you can kill the boss to skip it, so that's why we have Merida running straight towards the boss. I was very foolish earlier in the playthrough by not taking opportunities to rig Merida's strength, because currently it's a bit lower than where I'd like it to be, so as a result I have to simultaneously rig strength procs on 2 people with low strength growths, Merida and Holland. And Holland doesn't end up getting any strength level ups in this recording, but Merida gets all the ones she needs. So I decided to just keep this and rig Holland more in the next map. The essential number that we want to get Holland to is 6 strength or thereabouts, because at that point she only needs minimal multi-chance procs against the boss she has to kill in Chapter 10. And we also loaded up her inventory with stat boosters. Unfortunately, they all leave her inventory at the end of this map and get dumped in the convoy because she joins in a very particular position in the next map. And I guess they fixed her inventory because they didn't want the player to get soft-locked. A lot of the people in the top right area have very valuable weapons that would be nice to get, but we simply don't have time, so we just kill the boss while giving a few more kills. And look at Theodore, what a chump, he can't even one round. Anyways, the one side objective in this map is grabbing the liquid boots, otherwise known as liquid mobility or boot juice, and we use them as soon as we get them by sending them to the convoy and having Zayd drink the boot juice, which it's unsurprising that we do this because it is a footlocked Lord Seas game without rescue or any mechanics like that. So that's Chapter 8 completed in 4 turns, and soon we'll be moving on to the main attraction of this video. And now we are starting on Chapter 9. I actually found a newfound appreciation for this map during the low turn count playthrough, because normally this map feels very boring. You just slowly chip away at the enemies on the cliffs until you can eventually seize, because there's no real incentive to go fast. But when you force yourself to go fast, it's actually a fun puzzle working out how you're going to dispatch the threats on top of the cliff, who actually have some pretty annoying weapons. So the starting deployment, due to Sultan's idiocy, is with our 2 bow knights below that big plateau, and everyone else on top of it separated by a boulder. Normally you kind of hide out and send someone there to help them, but unfortunately we have to run Silton to the right side of the map as quickly as possible. So the normal strategy for this map when you're playing fast, or when you're playing at all, is to have Silton talk to one of the enemy Eagle Riders, who will give the Seeker Bow, which is guaranteed to hit, and you pretty much need that to have non-zero hit on the boss who's invisible but is guarding the gate of the yurt we have to seize. However, there are two ways to make the Seeker Bow strategy work. The first is to early promote Dune, and then he can make it to the yurt in time to take a pot shot, because 2 hits are needed to kill the boss and nobody's going to double him. Or another thing I considered was that I could have trained Sheila until she had Flurry, and then rigged a Flurry on the boss. However, I worked out that, as a matter of fact, the Masudian brand, the extremely powerful 2-use weapon, actually has, with Zaid's commander skill, which gives plus 10 hit to nearby allies, actually has decent hit rate, 16% in 1 RN. Doesn't sound great, but when you consider that it's brave, so you get 2 attacks, and it's also going to be used by a unit like Merida, who might proc multi-chance, because I had her learn that, which would then give her a full 3 attacks. It's actually quite impressive how reliable it is. I mean, it's still not great, it's still under 50%, but the things we do for low turn counts. You may have noticed quickly by seeing an empty square highlighted the main gimmick of this map and many maps later on. This is Kaga's one decision in designing Vestaria Saga that I really didn't like, which is these invisible Waguri assassins, because they just... You can still locate them by hovering your cursor over them, but it's a slog and it's frustrating, but what can you do? This whole breakout maneuver with Silton and Hoenn seemed like it was very dangerous, but it really isn't. Silton almost never died in all my resets of this segment, which there were a lot of, because it's very hard to get a 15% strength growth to go off enough, let me tell you. One place where Zaid actually has a real niche, not just as someone who walks to the gate, is fighting Waguri assassins, because normally hit rates aren't an issue in this game past the very early game, but Waguri assassins tend to have like 19 or 20 attack speed, which makes them actually very dodgy against things like cutlasses, and even the dandelion to an extent, but Edelstern has ridiculously high hit. Edelstern is another one of the few things that can actually have displayed hit on Tamberg, the invisible boss. One obstacle in front of us is the rock, which has 80 hit points, and anyone who has watched the Berwick Saga low turn count playthrough will know that inanimate objects with lots of HP are some of the most fearsome enemies in a low turn count playthrough, because they can't attack back. Thankfully, we have a lot of brave weapons and doubling in this game, so the rock isn't that big of an issue. You will actually see something pretty funny in a second relating to the rock. But for now, we are focusing on the people who are guarding the cliffs. So there are a lot of powerful enemies with powerful weapons guarding the cliffs. There's a Arbalestier, who isn't that strong. Behind the rock there's an archer with the Seratim bow, which it's like a brave weapon, except it gives you quadruple the attacks as usual. And even with a pretty strong unit, if they take 4 hits, that's a lot of damage. There's also a Nim Sorcerer, the brave 2 to 3 range dark spell, which is threatening if it manages to go off, as well as a bunch of other archers. And further down, there's a boss, I believe called Frog Duck for whatever reason, who has the Mebalus, which is a long-range tome that can take quite a bit of health out of Zaid or Silton. And the one last thing there is, which actually isn't as threatening as it sounds, is there's a Deadly Edge Waguri Assassin, which can really catch you off guard in a normal playthrough, because if it hits, it will reduce you down to 1 HP, but like most other Deadly Edge assassins in this game, for whatever reason it was decided that they should go last in the enemy movement order, and as a result, they'll frequently do things like go for Zaid with 8 hit points left, and it's just not a problem. So Caesar seems to be running into a bit of a precarious situation, but we really do want him to catch up, because Hullen doesn't just have kills to get, she also has items to use. There's kind of an FE6 syndrome here, where we have a bunch of stat boosters that would just be great to use in the preparations menu, but we can't use them in the preparations menu. And here you see something hilarious that happens in Vestaria Saga, which is things like doors and boulders are actually just enemies with 0 move and no attack. So you actually saw when the Spherian mages heal the rock. Unfortunately, their magic isn't enough to do much about the damage we dealt. Another threat I forgot to mention was the Mizarum Sorcerer, which will paralyze your units. Sadly, Silton is paralyzed, which is a pity because his offense would be nice for shooting up cliffs, but he won't be needed that much. So, another strange thing here is that for whatever reason, the enemies on the cliffs don't like to move until you trigger them. So we're going to burst them down, and you're actually going to see a situation where Zaid is in a place where he would actually be very vulnerable to being killed if the archers would simply move one up and shoot him, but they just don't, so otherwise this would get even more unreliable. And Akort doesn't have to do much here, but she has the Athol, but she has the far healing staff equipped, and this is just a matter of reliability. Sometimes our units get really low on health, and then she can go and heal them over the ridge. So yeah, here you see Zaid brought down to the point where if those 2 archers attacked him, he would easily die, but they don't. Oh, and also right below that, Ash is put out 1 health, but once again, the archers aren't going to go for him. Even though you don't think of mounted bow units as typically enemy phase units, Hullen actually manages to get quite a bit done by taking advantage of these Tomahawk and its poor movement in forests of only 2 squares. She can very easily just move a little bit back so that she can counter on enemy phase, which is good because a lot of her player phases now are spent chugging 2 liquid vitalities, a liquid defense and a liquid strength. Frogduck is very threatening. He took out half of Zaid's HP with 1 attack, but we handle him quickly. So you might wonder why we're bringing Silton all the way over here if we aren't going to use the Seeker Bow and are instead going to use the Masudian Brand. And the answer to that is, unfortunately, the conversation that gets you the Seeker Bow is required to get an event that allows you to recruit Maaya, who is the 3rd Eagle Rider you get in this game. I'll talk about her when I get her. In order to recruit her, there are 2 conditions you have to meet. You can't destroy any of the yurts, which a lot of people in their first playthrough will accidentally fail to recruit her if they're playing blind, because there's lots of good loot in the yurts, and you can't even damage them, in fact. And you also have to have Silton talk to her father, who's the Central Eagle Rider, and because he's noble or honorable or whatever, those Eagle Riders will not attack you unless you go for one of the yurts. And it would be a lot nicer if we could keep Silton behind, because due to his bad offense with anything other than his personal weapon, he can set up kills pretty well for Hullen, but alas, that's not the case. So yeah, we get the Seeker Bow, which isn't useful now. With 16 hit and 26 attack, Merida goes for the kill, and she procs a multi-chance and gets it. So, the problem with this map is that there really isn't, especially when you're playing this fast, there really isn't much action. Once you've cleared out this part, basically all the enemies are dead. Pretty much the one thing left to do is to keep clearing out reinforcements and feeding them to Poland, because even though her strength is getting up there, we want more kills for her. And we also want to take out the 2 Buguri assassins in the south of the map. One of them has a sleep knife, which if it hits someone will put them to sleep. And he is guarding the chest, which contains a Siam Thawmite. And the other just has an Assassin's Edge, which has a high crit rate, which really isn't as that threatening in this game because crits are only 2 times damage and assassins have pitiful strength. I am very glad that these are not Berwick Saga high crit assassins with 3 might, because that would be frightening. There is a bit of a blockage near the opening because we don't want to provoke that tomahawk. Just tabled to Maya, her face, because she's one of the huts, and you can actually get a very sad dialogue if you kill her, which is about how she still hasn't gone supper to her dad, because her one character trait, as far as I can tell, is that she likes to cook and do chores. Here, once again, a high accuracy personal weapon comes in handy in the form of Oxus Crescent, because it had 92 hit against assassins, which once again is hard to pull off. So it's strange how the music turns all epic even though there's nothing chasing us down or threatening us. Eventually some small reinforcements come, as in there's a wave of cavalry to the north and some Spherian mages to the south, but even if I didn't give the boots to Fade, by just full moving with him down the ladder to the left, you can always not have to deal with any of them. Another funny thing, which I digress because there isn't much going on anymore in this chapter, that happens very late in this map, I think turn 50 or 60, is there start appearing a few eagle riders from the little fort by the cactus on the plateau. And I don't know why they exist. And if you're wondering why an LTC was on turn 50 of this map, I was doing an Iron Man and I accidentally hit one of the yurts, which meant that I couldn't get the Seeker bow. So I had almost no options to fight Tamberg, until I realized that Sheila, who I was training really high as a joke, and was my first promotion, had a small bit of hit on Tamberg with the Rambling Rose, meaning that I still had a chance to complete the playthrough. But anyways, by then, I got to see some turn 50 or 60 reinforcements from there. I'm sort of curious if other maps have absurdly late reinforcements, but just an interesting detail. As with all COG games, there are a lot of strange details in this one. And here we get the final strength proc that Holland desperately needs. So now she is at full force and sort of ready to fight everyone in the next chapter, though she's never truly ready. So we swapped out Theodel for Court, the mage who joined us last chapter. This is a controversial opinion, but Theodel is not very good. He's fine, he can contribute, and it's mostly the same for a court, but a court brings some unique utility in an LTC, namely she eventually gets to use Nim, so I felt it was worth bringing her over Theodel. Not that the levels on them matter too much, because enemy resistance is so low in this game. So what was at first a very hectic map has really calmed down. We're just gently feeding kills to Holland and running our people south. The ladder on the bottom left allows light infantry and light knight, I think is the other infantry movement type, that Zayd has to go up and down, but obviously cavalry can't. Nor can tubs of lard like Crody and Bonacel. So unfortunately, even with the ladder helping us, Zayd is still the last one to escape. It's a pity that they couldn't have just given him light infantry movement type, because then he would have saved a turn or two, but what can you do? This does allow us to give more heals to Lilia, which she'll have to do some important things later, and it's not that bad if she'll be able to take a hit as a result. And this is one of the many examples as to why we gave Zayd the boots, because the first half of the map to an extent, but more so the second half, was really determined by how far can Zayd walk, and he can walk ever so slightly further with the boots. And since maps in this game are so big and take so many turns, it saves a lot more turns than it might in some other game. So we hang around just a little bit longer with Sylvan and Helen to get a few last heals in. And then on turn 14 we make our escape, and also look at Holen's stats. Is that ready to solo an entire horde? Who knows? Find out next time.